The sound of a hand striking flesh echoed through the silent courtroom like a gunshot. One moment, the arrogant billionaire CEO was laughing at his pregnant wife's tears. The next, he had crossed a line that no amount of money could fix. He thought he owned the room. He thought the judge was just another bureaucrat he could intimidate or buy off. He was wrong. When the Honourable Judge Evelyn Harper stood up, trembling with a rage that terrified the bailiffs, she didn't just slam her gavel. She looked the billionaire in the eye and uttered 3 words that changed everything. "That's my daughter. This is the story of how a tyrant fell and a mother's justice reigned supreme." The air inside the Superior Court of Manhattan was always cold. But today, for Sophia Caldwell, it felt like the inside of a morgue. She sat at the defendant's table, her hands resting protectively over her swollen belly. She was 8 months pregnant, her ankles were swollen, and the cheap polyester dress she had bought from a thrift store scratched at her skin. It was the only thing that fit her anymore. Across the aisle, Dawson Caldwell looked like he had just stepped out of a GQ photo shoot. His charcoal suit was bespoke, tailored to perfection by Savile Row's finest. His hair was slicked back, revealing a face that the business world hailed as a visionary, and Sophia knew as a monster. He sat with his legs crossed, tapping a fountain pen against his knee, looking not at the judge, but at his watch. To him, this custody hearing wasn't a battle. It was a scheduling conflict. Mr. Caldwell, his lawyer, a shark-eyed man named Arthur Pendergast, whispered a little too loudly. "The judge is entering. Please rise." Dawson didn't stand immediately. He took a sip of water, adjusted his cufflinks, and then rose with a languid, bored grace. It was a power move. He was signaling to everyone in the room, the stenographer, the bailiffs, and especially Sophia, that he answered to no one. "All rise for the Honourable Judge Evelyn Harper," the bailiff announced, his voice booming. Sophia didn't look up. She couldn't. The shame was too heavy. She had left Dawson 3 months ago with nothing but the clothes on her back and the baby growing inside her. She had been living in a shelter, scrubbing floors at a diner under the table just to buy prenatal vitamins. Dawson had frozen her accounts, blacklisted her from her former social circle, and spread rumors that she was mentally unstable. She heard the rustle of robes and the heavy thud of files being placed on the bench. "Be seated," a voice commanded. The voice was sharp, authoritative, and strangely familiar, though Sophia couldn't place it. It resonated with a steeliness that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. Sophia kept her head down, staring at the scuffed wood of the table. "Case number 49204, the clerk read. "Dawson Caldwell versus Sophia Caldwell. Motion for full custody and emergency restraining order." "Ready for the plaintiff, Your Honour?" Pendergast said, smoothing his silk tie. "Ready for the defendant," Sophia's court-appointed lawyer mumbled. He was a young, overworked public defender named Leo, who had met Sophia for exactly 10 minutes before the hearing. He smelled like stale coffee and defeat. Judge Harper adjusted her glasses, peering down from the high bench. She was a woman in her late 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back into a severe bun. Her face was unreadable, etched with the lines of someone who had heard every lie humanity had to offer. She flipped through the dossier in front of her, her brow furrowing as she read the claims. "Mr. Pendergast," Judge Harper said, her eyes not leaving the papers. "You are petitioning for full custody of an unborn child and a restraining order against the mother immediately upon birth. On what grounds?" Pendergast stood, buttoning his jacket. He walked to the center of the room, playing to an imaginary audience. "Your Honor, my client, Mr. Caldwell, is the CEO of Caldwell Tech. He is a pillar of this community. He can provide the child with the best education, health care, and security money can buy. The defendant, however, he gestured dismissively toward Sophia, is currently homeless, unemployed, and, we have reason to believe, suffering from severe paranoia and emotional instability. She fled the marital home without cause, endangering the fetus with her reckless lifestyle. Sophia gripped the edge of the table. "Liar!" she wanted to scream. "I left because he threw a wine glass at my head." But she stayed silent. Dawson had told her 1,000 times, "No one believes a hysterical woman, Sophia. They only believe the man who signs the checks." "Homeless?" Judge Harper repeated. She looked at Sophia. "Is this true, Mrs. Caldwell?" Sophia forced herself to stand. Her legs shook. I am staying at the St. Mary's Women's Shelter, Your Honor." "Dawson." "Mr. Caldwell cut off my access to our joint funds. I had nowhere else to go." Dawson let out a short, derisive scoff. It was quiet, but in the acoustic perfection of the courtroom, it was unmistakable. Judge Harper's eyes snapped to him. "Is something funny, Mr. Caldwell?" Dawson smiled, a charming, practiced expression that didn't reach his cold blue eyes. "Apologies, Your Honor. It's just the dramatics. I offered my wife a generous allowance to stay at our penthouse. She chose to run away to play the victim. It's a performance." "I see," the judge said. She looked at Sophia again, studying her face. For a fleeting second, the judge's stoic mask seemed to crack. A flash of recognition? Confusion? But it was gone as quickly as it came. "Proceed, Mr. Pendergast," the judge said, leaning back. For the next hour, Sophia sat and watched as her life was dismantled. Pendergast produced witness statements from staff Dawson had paid off. The housekeeper claimed Sophia drank alcohol while pregnant. The chauffeur claimed she was seen talking to strange men. It was a symphony of lies orchestrated by a man who treated people like code to be rewritten. Dawson sat there, checking his emails on a sleek tablet hidden under the table, looking every inch the victor. He wasn't just winning. He was bored with winning. Sophia felt a kick in her ribs. The baby. Hold on, she thought desperately. Mama is trying. "We have one final piece of evidence, Your Honor," Pendergast said, holding up a flash drive. "Security footage from the night Mrs. Caldwell left. It shows her attacking my client." Sophia gasped. "That's not true. He was hitting me. I pushed him away." "Order!" Judge Harper banged the gavel. Pendergast smirked. "The video is edited only for time, Your Honor." He played the clip on the court monitors. It was grainy, black and white footage from the foyer of their mansion. It showed Sophia screaming, her face contorted in fear, shoving Dawson hard against the wall before running out the door. It didn't show what happened 5 minutes prior. It didn't show the bruises on her arms. It only showed her aggression. "She looks unhinged," Dawson whispered to his lawyer, loud enough for Sophia to hear. Sophia sank into a chair. It was over. She was going to lose her baby to the man who made her wish she was dead. She looked up at the judge, tears blurring her vision. She saw Judge Harper staring at the screen, her lips pressed into a thin, white line. The judge wasn't looking at the video anymore. She was looking at Dawson. And for the first time, Dawson Caldwell didn't look bored. He looked annoyed. Because the judge wasn't nodding. She was gripping her gavel so hard her knuckles were white. The courtroom took a recess for lunch, but Sophia didn't eat. She couldn't afford the cafeteria food, and the nausea of anxiety had clamped her stomach shut. She sat on a wooden bench in the hallway, watching the bustling lawyers and weeping families. She felt a shadow fall over her. She looked up to see Dawson standing there, flanked by Pendergast and 2 large bodyguards. He looked immaculate, not a hair out of place. He held a bottle of imported sparkling water. "You look terrible, Sophia," Dawson said, his voice smooth like velvet over gravel. "Go away, Dawson," she whispered, clutching her bag. He took a step closer, invading her personal space. The bodyguards turned their backs, forming a wall to block the view of any passers-by. "Why are you doing this?" Dawson asked, feigning concern. "Dragging this out? You know you're going to lose. Pendergast has the judge in his pocket. We have lunch dates with her husband's firm all the time. This is just a formality." "That's a lie," Sophia said, though her heart sank. "This is a court of law." Dawson laughed softly. "Oh, sweet, naive Sophia. The law is for poor people. People like me. We write the law. Look at you. You're pathetic. You can't even feed yourself, let alone a child. When I take the baby, I'm going to hire a nanny. You'll never see him. I'll tell him his mother was a drug addict who abandoned him." "I will never let you take him," Sophia hissed, struggling to stand up. The weight of her belly made it difficult, and she stumbled slightly. Dawson reached out, not to help her, but to steady her with a grip that was painful on her upper arm. To an observer, it looked like a husband helping his pregnant wife. In reality, his fingers were digging into her bruise. "You don't have a choice," he murmured into her ear. "You are nothing. You have no family, no money, no friends. You are a ghost, Sophia. You're just a vessel for my air. And now that you're almost done, I'm discarding the packaging." "I have a mother," Sophia said, her voice shaking. It was a bluff. She hadn't seen her mother in 10 years. She had run away at 18, rebellious and foolish, chasing a boy who wasn't Dawson, only to fall into Dawson's trap years later. She didn't even know if her mother was alive. Dawson sneered. "Your mother? That drunk? She's probably dead in a ditch somewhere. And if she isn't, she's too ashamed of you to show her face. You're alone." He released her arm with a shove, sending her stumbling back onto the bench. "See you inside, darling." When the court reconvened, the atmosphere had shifted. The air was heavier. Judge Harper entered, looking even more severe than before. She didn't sit immediately. She stood behind her high chair, her gaze sweeping the room. "Mr. Pendergast," the judge said, her voice unusually low. "I have reviewed the footage you submitted. I noticed something curious." Pendergast stood, confident. "Yes, Your Honor? The unprovoked assault?" "The time stamp," Judge Harper said. "It jumps. There are 3 minutes missing right before Mrs. Caldwell pushes the plaintiff. Where is that footage?" Pendergast blinked. He hadn't expected anyone to check the metadata so quickly. "Technical glitch, Your Honor. The system is old." "Convenient," Judge Harper said dryly. "And Mr. Caldwell, I have reviewed your financial affidavit. You claim your wife has access to funds, yet the bank records show her accounts were closed by administrative request on the same day she left the residence." Dawson stood up, bypassing his lawyer. He didn't like the tone she was using. He was used to judges fawning over him. "Your Honor, with all due respect, my wife is a spender. I had to secure the assets to prevent her from draining the estate during her manic episode." "Manic episode?" the judge repeated. "Is she diagnosed?" "She refuses to see a doctor," Dawson lied smoothly. "But I live with her. I know." "I see," Judge Harper said. She turned to Sophia. "Mrs. Caldwell, do you have anything to say? This is your chance." Sophia stood up. She looked at Dawson, who was glaring at her with a promise of retribution in his eyes. Then she looked at the judge. There was something in the judge's eyes, not pity, but an invitation, a challenge. He told me I was nothing, Sophia said, her voice trembling but gaining strength. He told me in the hallway just now that he owns this court, that he owns you. The courtroom went silent. Pendergast dropped his pen. Objection, Pendergast roared. Hearsay. This is slander. Dawson's face turned red. She's lying. She's hallucinating. Judge Harper raised a hand to silence the lawyer. She leaned forward, staring directly at Dawson. Did you say that, Mr. Caldwell? Did you tell your wife that you own me? Dawson straightened his jacket. He was losing control of the narrative, and he hated it. I said I have faith in the justice system, Your Honor. My wife twists words. It's part of her condition. She's hysterical. Look at her. She's a mess. She's trash. The word hung in the air. Trash. Sophia felt a snap inside her chest. The years of abuse, the gaslighting, the fear. It all boiled over. I am not trash, she screamed, stepping away from her table. You are the one who hurts people. You hit me when I was 3 months pregnant because I bought the wrong brand of sparkling water. You kicked our dog until it couldn't walk. You are a monster, Dawson. Dawson moved faster than anyone expected. His facade of the cool, collected billionaire shattered. He was a bully who had been challenged in front of an audience. He stepped toward the aisle, ignoring his lawyer's frantic grab for his arm. Shut your mouth, you ungrateful little... Dawson lunged. Sophia flinched, raising her hands to protect her face. They were only a few feet apart. The bailiff was moving, but he was old and slow. Dawson reached across the barrier, separating the plaintiff and defendant tables. He didn't punch her. That would leave a mark. He did what he always did to demean her. Crack. He slapped her. Hard. It wasn't a closed fist, but the force of his open palm against her cheek was enough to knock her off balance. She stumbled back, crying out as her hip hit the heavy oak table. The sound reverberated off the high ceilings. Total silence followed. The stenographer stopped typing. The public defender's jaw dropped. Even Pendergast looked horrified, not for moral reasons, but because he knew the case was dead. Dawson stood there, breathing heavily, his hand still raised. He realized what he had done. He looked around the room, expecting the usual excuses to work. She came at me, he stammered, breathless. You saw it. She provoked me. He looked up at the bench, expecting the judge to call for order, to clear the court, to give him a slap on the wrist. But Judge Evelyn Harper wasn't banging her gavel. She was standing up. She slowly took off her glasses and set them down on the files. Her hands were shaking, not with fear, but with a volcanic fury that made the air in the room vibrate. She reached up and unzipped the front of her black judicial robe. Mr. Caldwell, she said. Her voice was no longer the professional, detached tone of a jurist. It was guttural. It was personal. You just made the last mistake of your life. Dawson blinked, confused. Excuse me? You can't speak to me like that. I'll have your badge. I'll have your job. Judge Harper walked around the bench. She didn't use the stairs. She practically jumped down the level to the floor, her robes billowing behind her, like the wings of an avenging angel. She walked right past the bailiff, who stepped aside as if sensing a force of nature. She marched straight up to Sophia. Sophia was clutching her cheek, tears streaming down her face, looking at the judge with wide, terrified eyes. She cowered, expecting another lecture. Judge Harper stopped inches from Sophia. She reached out a trembling hand and gently touched the red mark on Sophia's face. Sophia, the judge whispered. Sophia froze. She looked into the woman's eyes, grey, flecked with green, the same eyes she saw in the mirror every day. The memory hit her like a freight train, the smell of lavender perfume, the stern but loving voice reading bedtime stories. Mum? Sophia gasped. Judge Harper turned slowly to face Dawson. The tears in her eyes vanished, replaced by cold, hard steel. "You didn't just slap a defendant, Mr. Caldwell," the judge said, her voice rising until it thundered off the walls. "You didn't just slap a woman." She took a step toward him. Dawson, for the first time in his life, took a step back. "You just slapped my daughter." The courtroom, usually a place of sterile procedure and hushed tones, had devolved into a tableau of frozen shock. The echo of Judge Harper's declaration, "You just slapped my daughter," seemed to hang in the air, heavier than the oak gavel resting on the bench. Dawson Caldwell, a man who had negotiated billion-dollar mergers without breaking a sweat, looked as though he had been struck by lightning. He blinked rapidly, his brain struggling to recompute the data. Daughter. It was impossible. He had vetted Sophia. He had hired private investigators to scour her background before he married her. The report had said she was an orphan, a runaway from a trailer park in Ohio with no living relatives. "You're lying," Dawson spat out, his voice cracking. The veneer of the sophisticated CEO was gone. Underneath was a cornered animal. "She has no family. She told me herself. You're just trying to save her because you're a biased, corrupt bailiff." Evelyn Harper didn't shout. She didn't have to. Her voice was ice cold, cutting through Dawson's tirade like a scalpel. Two bailiffs, who had been hesitating, snapped into action. They were large men, accustomed to dealing with unruly petty criminals, not titans of industry in Italian suits, but the assault had been witnessed by everyone. "Mr. Caldwell, place your hands behind your back," the lead bailiff said, reaching for his handcuffs. "Don't touch me," Dawson roared, shoving the bailiff away. He turned to his lawyer, Arthur Pendergast, who was currently looking like he wanted to dissolve into the floorboards. "Arthur, do something. This is entrapment. The judge is related to the defendant. This is a mistrial. Mr. Caldwell, please," Pendergast hissed, his face pale. "You assaulted her in open court, on the record. There is nothing I can—" "I am Dawson Caldwell!" Dawson screamed, the veins in his neck bulging. "I own this city. You think this old woman scares me?" He pointed a shaking finger at Evelyn. "I will have your robe. I will bury you in lawsuits until you're begging for change on the street." Evelyn Harper stood her ground. She was no longer just a judge. She was a mother who had watched her child be struck. She stepped closer to Dawson, ignoring the bailiffs wrestling his arms behind his back. "You can try, Mr. Caldwell," Evelyn said softly. "You can throw your money and your lawyers at me. But you made a fatal error. You thought Sophia was alone. You thought she was weak because she is kind. You mistook her silence for submission." The click of the handcuffs was loud and final. Dawson struggled, his face pressed against the defendant's table, the same table where Sophia had sat in fear just moments ago. "Get off me," Dawson grunted. "Dawson Caldwell," the bailiff recited. "You are under arrest for assault and battery and contempt of court." As they hauled him away, kicking and shouting threats, his eyes locked onto Sophia. She was still standing near the bench, her hand over her reddened cheek, trembling. "You're dead, Sophia!" Dawson screamed as he was dragged through the double doors. "You hear me? You'll never see that kid. I'll destroy you." The doors slammed shut, cutting off his voice. Silence returned to the courtroom, but the energy had shifted entirely. The clerks, the stenographer, the few members of the public, everyone was staring at the judge and the defendant. Evelyn Harper took a deep breath. She turned to the court reporter. "Strike the record of the last 5 minutes. This hearing is suspended." "Your Honor?" Pendergast stepped forward, trying to salvage the wreckage. Your client is in a holding cell, Mr. Pendergast," Evelyn said, her voice trembling slightly. now that the adrenaline was fading. And as of this moment, I am recusing myself from this case immediately. I cannot preside over a matter involving my own flesh and blood. Case number 49204 will be reassigned to Judge Kowalski. But, "Get out," Evelyn whispered. Then, louder, "Everyone, clear the courtroom, now." It wasn't a request. It was an eviction. Pendergast gathered his papers with frantic speed and practically ran out. The public defender, Leo, looked confused, clutching his briefcase. "You too, counselor," Evelyn said to him. "Thank you for your service. I will take it from here." Within a minute, the room was empty, save for the two women. Sophia stood by the table, her head bowed. The adrenaline dump had left her feeling faint. She gripped the edge of the wood to keep from collapsing. She felt a presence beside her. Not the terrifying, looming presence of Dawson, but something warmer. Sophie? The nickname broke her. It was the name only her father used to call her before he died, the name her mother stopped using when Sophia became a rebellious teenager. Sophia looked up. The formidable Judge Harper was gone. In her place was a mother with tears streaming down her face, reaching out with hands that shook. "I didn't know," Evelyn sobbed, her composure shattering. "I saw the name on the docket. Caldwell. I thought. I didn't know it was you. I've been looking for you for 10 years, Sophie. 10 years. I thought you hated me," Sophia whispered, her voice cracking. "I ran away. I stole your car. I said horrible things." "I don't care about the car," Evelyn cried, pulling her daughter into a fierce embrace. "I don't care about the things you said. I was too hard on you. I drove you away. And when I couldn't find you, I thought I had lost you forever." Sophia collapsed into her mother's arms, the barrier of her pregnancy between them, burying her face in the judicial robes that smelled of old paper and the lavender perfume she remembered from childhood. For the first time in months, she let go. She wailed, a guttural sound of grief and relief. "He hurts me, Mum," Sophia sobbed into her mother's shoulder. "He hurts me, and he smiles when he does it." Evelyn tightened her grip, her eyes looking over Sophia's shoulder at the empty chair where Dawson had sat. The look on her face was terrifying. It wasn't the look of a judge who believed in rehabilitation. It was the look of a predator who had just found its prey. "He will never touch you again," Evelyn vowed, stroking Sophia's hair. "I am not just a judge, Sophia. I know how the system works. I know where the bodies are buried. Dawson Caldwell thinks he's playing a game. He just started a war with the wrong woman." The reunion was short-lived. There was no time for tea and catching up on lost years. Dawson Caldwell was a billionaire, which meant the rules of gravity didn't apply to him. 3 hours later, Sophia was sitting in the living room of a brownstone in Brooklyn, her mother's home. It was a fortress of books and mahogany, a stark contrast to the sterile, glass and steel prison Dawson called a penthouse. Sophia held a cup of chamomile tea, her cheek now bruising a deep purple. Evelyn was on the phone in the kitchen. She had shed her robes and was wearing a sharp business suit. She was pacing, her voice low and furious. "I don't care what the bail schedule says, Frank. He's a flight risk and a danger to the victim. Yes, I know Pendergast is pulling strings. Fine. If he gets out, I want a protective detail on this house that would make the Secret Service jealous." She slammed the phone down and walked into the living room. "Is he out?" Sophia asked, fear spiking in her chest. "He posted bail," Evelyn admitted, sitting on the ottoman in front of Sophia. $2 million. He paid it in cash. He's back in his penthouse." Sophia began to hyperventilate. "He'll come here. He has people. He tracks my phone. Your phone is in the Hudson River," Evelyn said firmly, taking Sophia's hands. "I threw it off the bridge on the way here, and this house is unlisted. It's under a trust. He won't find you tonight." "But he will eventually," Sophia whispered. "He wins. He always wins." "He wins against people who play fair," Evelyn said. "He wins against people who are afraid of him. I am neither." The doorbell rang. Sophia jumped, spilling tea on her lap. "Relax," Evelyn said, standing up. "That's our cavalry." Evelyn opened the door to reveal a man who looked like he had been carved out of granite. He was tall, wearing a leather jacket over a t-shirt, with a scar running through his left eyebrow. He didn't look like a lawyer. He looked like a bar brawler who happened to have passed the bar exam. "Gideon," Evelyn said, stepping aside. "Judge?" The man nodded. He walked in, his sharp eyes scanning the room before landing on Sophia. His expression softened instantly when he saw the bruise. "Sophia, this is Gideon Graves," Evelyn introduced. "He was the best prosecutor in the district until he got fired for punching a defendant who spit on a victim. Now he runs his own firm. He hates bullies." Gideon extended a hand. "Mrs. Caldwell, I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances, but I promise you, I'm going to make your husband wish he'd never been born." Sophia hesitantly shook his hand. It was rough, calloused, but gentle. "He has the best lawyers in the city. Pendergast." "Pendergast is a technician," Gideon scoffed, pulling a chair around to sit backward on it. "He knows the law. I know war. Pendergast fights with paperwork. I fight with dirt." "We have a problem, Gideon," Evelyn said, pouring herself a scotch. "Since I'm a witness to the assault, and the victim's mother, I'm sidelined. Dawson is going to spin this. He's going to say I'm a corrupt judge who hid her relationship with the defendant to entrap him." "Smart play," Gideon mused. "It's what I would do." "He's already started," Evelyn said, turning on the television. The news was on. A breaking news banner flashed across the bottom of the screen. "Billionaire CEO alleges judicial conspiracy." Dawson Caldwell was standing on the steps of the courthouse, surrounded by microphones. He looked shaken, but resolute, the perfect picture of a wronged man. "I'm the victim of a setup," Dawson was saying to the cameras. "I didn't know Judge Harper was Sophia's mother. No one did. They kept it secret. Why? To ambush me. To provoke me. Yes, I reacted poorly to my wife's aggression, and I regret that. But I was under extreme emotional duress. This was a kangaroo court designed to steal my child and my company." Sophia watched, horrified. "He's twisting it. He's making himself the victim." "He's controlling the narrative," Gideon said, watching the screen intensely. "He knows he can't win the assault charge, so he's trying to win the custody battle in the court of public opinion. He wants to make you look like a conspirator and your mother look corrupt." "If he succeeds," Evelyn said, her voice tight, "I'll be disbarred. And the new judge, Judge Kowalski, will be under immense pressure to show he isn't biased. He might rule in Dawson's favor just to prove the system isn't rigged." "So we lose?" Sophia asked, tears welling up again. "No," Gideon said. He stood up and walked to the window. "We just have to change the battlefield. Dawson thinks this is about custody. We need to make it about something he cares about more." "Money?" Sophia asked. "Freedom," Gideon corrected. "Sophia, you lived with him for 3 years. You signed papers for him. You heard his phone calls." I signed things I didn't understand," Sophia admitted. "He used to make me sign documents for tax purposes. He said since I was his wife, I could hold assets in my name to lower his liability." Gideon smiled, a slow, predatory grin. "Did you read them?" "Sometimes. I took photos of a few once, because I was scared I was signing my life away. I sent them to my old email, the one he doesn't know about. Gideon pulled out his phone. Can you access that email? Yes. Good. Gideon turned to Evelyn. Dawson slapped his wife because he lost control. That means he's volatile. If he's volatile in court, imagine how sloppy he is with his books. If Sophia has evidence of tax evasion or fraud, we don't just sue him for custody. We send him to federal prison. Evelyn nodded slowly. The nuclear option? It's the only option, Gideon said. But we have to move fast. Once he realizes Sophia might know something, he won't just come for the baby. He'll come to silence her permanently. On the next morning, the world had turned against them. Dawson's PR machine was a beast. By 8 a.m., the tabloids were running stories with headlines like "The Runaway and the Judge, a mother-daughter con," and "Sophia Caldwell's Secret Past, Drugs, Men, and Lies." Fake interviews with friends from Sophia's past appeared, claiming she was a manipulative gold digger. A doctored video surfaced on social media, appearing to show Sophia drinking heavily at a club, footage that was actually from 5 years ago, before she even met Dawson, but edited to look recent. Sophia sat at Evelyn's kitchen table, reading the comments on her phone. She probably provoked him just to get a payout. The judge should be in jail for hiding her identity. Poor Dawson, trapped by these women. "Stop reading that," Evelyn commanded, snatching the phone away. "It's poison. It's designed to break you." "It's working," Sophia whispered. "Everyone hates me. Even if we win in court, I can't live like this. I can't raise a baby when everyone thinks I'm a monster." "News cycles last 24 hours, Sophia," Evelyn said, pouring coffee. "Truth lasts forever. We just have to survive the cycle." Gideon burst through the front door, looking energized. He was carrying a stack of files. "I have good news and bad news," Gideon announced. "Bad news first," Evelyn said. "Pendergast just filed a motion to have Sophia deemed mentally incompetent," Gideon said, slamming a file on the table. "He's using the manic episode narrative. He wants an emergency psychological evaluation by his chosen doctor. If they deem her incompetent, Dawson gets temporary guardianship of Sophia and the unborn baby." "He wants to institutionalize me?" Sophia gasped. "Like, lock me away?" "It's a classic silencer move," Gideon said. "If you're crazy, nothing you say about his business dealings matters. You're not a whistleblower. You're just a paranoid patient." "And the good news?" Evelyn asked, her jaw set tight. "I looked at the photos Sophia sent to her email," Gideon said. His voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "It's not just tax evasion. It's worse. Dawson has been using a shell company under Sophia's maiden name, without her legal consent, technically, to launder money for the Rossi crime syndicate." The room went deadly silent. "The mob?" Evelyn asked. "Dawson is washing money for the mob?" "High-tech laundering," Gideon explained. "Cryptocurrency exchanges, offshore real estate, and he put it all in Sophia's name. If the feds find out, they won't arrest Dawson. They'll arrest Sophia." Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. "He set me up? The whole time? That's why he married me? Because I had no family? Because no one would look for me if I went to jail?" "Exactly," Gideon said. "You weren't a wife to him, Sophia. You were a scapegoat, a human shield. He planned this from day one. If the authorities ever got close, he'd dump the evidence on you, claim you were the mastermind, and he was the clueless husband." "That son of a bitch," Evelyn whispered. Her shock was replaced by a cold, calculating fury. He didn't just abuse her, he built a cage to bury her in. "So what do we do?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling. "If we go to the police, they'll see my name on the documents. They'll arrest me." "Not if we get to the physical ledger first," Gideon said. "The digital trail points to you. But guys like Dawson always keep a break glass in case of emergency file, a physical ledger that proves who actually moved the money. It's his insurance policy against the mob, to prove he didn't steal from them. Where would he keep it? Evelyn asked. Not at the office, Gideon said. Too risky. Not at the penthouse. The maids snoop. Sophia closed her eyes, thinking back. She remembered the nights Dawson would disappear. He never went to the office. He went to the old family estate in the Hamptons, the one he said was being renovated. He never let her go there. He said it was full of asbestos. The Hamptons house, Sophia said, opening her eyes. The wine cellar. He has a vault there. He told me it was for vintage wines that were too sensitive to light, but he has a biometric lock on it that costs more than the house. Gideon checked his watch. The hearing for your mental competency is tomorrow morning. If we don't have that ledger by then, Judge Kowalski might grant the motion. Once you're in a psych ward, Sophia, we can't get you out easily. We have to break into his house? Evelyn asked, scandalized. I am a judge of the Superior Court. No, Gideon said, pulling a set of keys from his pocket. You are a concerned grandmother. I am a lawyer doing discovery. And Sophia, he looked at her. Sophia is the legal co-owner of that property. Her name is on the deed. I checked. So it's not breaking and entering, Sophia realized. It's a wife visiting her vacation home. Gideon grinned. But we have to go now. Dawson is in the city doing press interviews. If we leave now, we can get there and back before he realizes we've made a move. It's dangerous, Evelyn warned. If his security is there, I brought backup, Gideon said. He gestured to the window. Outside, a black SUV was waiting. 2 large men sat in the front. Private security. Sophia stood up. The fear was still there, churning in her gut, but something else was rising to meet it. Anger. Dawson had stolen her life, her dignity, and now he tried to steal her freedom and her child. He had turned her into a criminal on paper without her knowing. She looked at her mother. Evelyn gave a curt nod. Let's go get him, Sophia said. They moved quickly. The drive to the Hamptons was tense. The sky was turning a bruised purple as dusk settled. When they arrived at the sprawling estate, the house looked like a Gothic monster against the darkening sky. Stay in the car, Judge, Gideon told Evelyn. If things go south, you need to be clean. If things go south, Evelyn said, pulling a small, pearl-handled revolver from her purse. I'm coming in. Gideon blinked. Remind me never to be late for court in your district. Sophia and Gideon approached the front door. Sophia's hands shook as she punched in the code. 1984, Dawson's birth year. The door beeped and clicked open. The house was silent, smelling of dust and expensive cedar. They moved through the shadows toward the basement door. The cellar is this way, Sophia whispered. They descended the stone stairs. The air grew colder. At the end of the corridor was a heavy steel door. The wine cellar. The biometric lock, Gideon noted. We can't open this. I can't, Sophia said. But Dawson is arrogant. He thinks I'm stupid. She moved a loose stone in the wall next to the door. Behind it was a manual keypad. He installed a backup code because he was afraid the power would go out and ruin the wine. He wrote it down in his diary once. He thought I couldn't read his handwriting. She typed in a sequence. Sophia. The light turned green. He used my name? Sophia whispered, stunned. Possession, Gideon muttered. He brands everything he owns, even his secrets. The door hissed open. Inside, rows of wine bottles lined the walls, but in the center of the room, on a pedestal, sat a small black safe. That's it, Gideon said. He moved toward it. Suddenly, The lights in the cellar slammed on, blinding them. Touching things that don't belong to you is a bad habit, darling. Sophia froze. She spun around. Dawson was standing at the top of the stairs. He wasn't in the city. He was here. And he wasn't alone. 2 of his personal security guards, massive men with tasers, stood behind him. Dawson held a phone in his hand. He was smiling. "I knew you'd come," Dawson said, descending the stairs slowly. "I leaked the fake news about the ledger myself. I knew your new lawyer would sniff out the money laundering trail eventually. I just needed to lure you here." "Why?" Gideon demanded, stepping in front of Sophia. "Because," Dawson said, reaching the bottom of the stairs. "Breaking into a home is a crime, and if a pregnant, mentally unstable woman attacks her husband in his own home, well, I have the right to defend myself." He nodded to his guards. "Make it look like an accident." The silence in the wine cellar was suffocating, broken only by the hum of the climate control and the ragged breathing of the people trapped inside. Dawson stood at the bottom of the stairs, a king in his dark kingdom, flanked by his 2 hired muscles. The golden light from the sconces cast long, distorted shadows against the racks of vintage Bordeaux and Pinot Noir. "You really are a disappointment, Sophia." Dawson sighed, adjusting his cufflinks as if he were preparing for a board meeting rather than a murder. "I gave you everything. A penthouse, a credit card, a life people kill for. And you throw it away for what? Pride? To reconnect with a mother who abandoned you?" "She didn't abandon me," Sophia said, her voice shaking but her chin high. She stood behind Gideon, her hands resting protectively on her belly. "I ran away because I was young and stupid, but I'm not stupid anymore, Dawson. I see you. You're small." Dawson's jaw tightened. "Get the drive," he ordered the guards, "and deal with the lawyer." The first guard, a man with a neck as thick as a tree trunk, lunged at Gideon. Gideon Graves didn't panic. He didn't assume a karate stance. He moved with the brutal efficiency of a street fighter. As the guard swung a heavy fist, Gideon ducked, driving his shoulder into the man's solar plexus. The guard grunted, doubling over. But he was massive. He didn't fall. He grabbed Gideon by the collar of his leather jacket and slammed him against the stone wall. "Gideon!" Sophia screamed. The second guard moved toward Sophia. "Don't touch her!" Gideon roared. He headbutted the first guard, the sound of bone on bone sickeningly loud, and broke free. He threw himself at the second guard, tackling him away from Sophia. They crashed into a rack of wine, sending thousands of dollars of red liquid shattering onto the floor. The cellar instantly smelled of alcohol and grapes, looking like a bloodbath. Dawson watched the chaos with a sneer. He saw his opening. While Gideon was fighting 2 men on the floor, slipping on the spilled wine, Dawson stepped toward Sophia. Sophia backed away until her spine hit the cold steel of the vault door. There was nowhere left to go. "It's just you and me now, darling," Dawson whispered, pulling a switchblade from his pocket. The blade clicked open, gleaming in the dim light. "I'm going to make this look like a robbery gone wrong. The intruders broke in. They killed my wife. I barely survived. The public will love me. The grieving widower." "You won't get away with it," Sophia cried, clutching the side of the vault. "The ledger! The police will find it." "The ledger goes in the incinerator," Dawson said, stepping closer. "And the baby? Well, it's a tragedy, really. Unborn children rarely survive trauma like this." He raised the knife. Sophia squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the pain. She thought of her son. She thought of her mother. Bang! The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. A bottle of 1945 Romane Conti next to Dawson's head exploded, showering him in glass and wine. Dawson shrieked, dropping the knife and covering his face, thinking he had been shot. "Drop it!" The voice came from the top of the stairs. It wasn't the trembling voice of a grandmother. It was the command of an executioner. Judge Evelyn Harper stood on the landing. She held the pearl-handled revolver with both hands, her stance wide, her aim steady. She wasn't wearing her robes, but she had never looked more like the hand of justice than she did in that moment. "Mom!" Sophia sobbed. "I said drop it, Dawson!" Evelyn yelled, descending the stairs one slow, deliberate step at a time. "Kick the knife away." Dawson, bleeding from small cuts on his cheek where the glass had flown, looked up at her with wide, terrified eyes. The bully had vanished. In the face of lethal force, he was a coward. He kicked the knife across the floor. You can't shoot me," Dawson stammered, holding his hands up. "You're a judge. You're an officer of the court." "I am a mother first," Evelyn hissed. She reached the bottom of the floor, keeping the gun trained on his chest. "And right now, the court is closed." Behind them, the fight had ended. Gideon, bleeding from a cut above his eye and panting heavily, had both guards unconscious on the floor. He wiped the blood from his face and limped over to pick up Dawson's knife. "Nice shot, Your Honor," Gideon wheezed, kicking one of the groaning guards in the ribs to keep him down. "I was aiming for his ear," Evelyn said coldly. "I missed." Dawson looked between the three of them. He realized the dynamic had shifted. He was outnumbered. He began to back away, his eyes darting to the open vault. The ledger. If he could just destroy the ledger, he still had a chance. It was paper evidence. He lunged for the safe. "No!" Sophia screamed. She moved on pure instinct. The adrenaline of motherhood overrode her fear. As Dawson reached for the black book inside the safe, Sophia grabbed a heavy magnum bottle of champagne from a lower rack. She swung it with both hands. The heavy glass bottle connected with the back of Dawson's head with a dull thud. Dawson didn't scream. His eyes rolled back in his head, and he crumbled to the floor, unconscious, draped over the pile of shattered glass and spilled wine like a rag doll. Sophia stood over him, breathing hard, the bottle still clutched in her hands. She was trembling violently. Evelyn holstered her gun and ran to her daughter. Sophie, are you okay? Did he touch you?" I hit him," Sophia whispered, looking at her hands. "I hit him." "You defended yourself," Gideon said, checking Dawson's pulse. "He's alive, unfortunately. But he's out cold." Gideon reached into the safe and pulled out the black leather-bound ledger. He flipped it open. His eyes scanned the pages, and a grim smile spread across his bloodied face. "Jackpot," Gideon said. "Dates, amounts, names, the Rossi family, the crypto transfers. And right here," he pointed to a page, "Dawson's signature verifying the laundering process. It clears you, Sophia. It proves he set up the shell companies without your knowledge." Sirens began to wail in the distance, getting louder by the second. "That would be the state troopers," Evelyn said, smoothing her hair. "I called them when we crossed the property line." She looked down at Dawson, then at her daughter. She took the champagne bottle from Sophia's hands and set it down. Then she pulled Sophia into a hug, so tight it felt like she was trying to fuse their souls back together. "It's over, baby," Evelyn whispered into Sophia's hair. "The nightmare is over." The downfall of Dawson Caldwell was not a slow decline. It was a cliff dive. The arrest at the Hamptons estate was the lead story on every news channel in the country. The image of the billionaire CEO being led out of his mansion in handcuffs, bandaged and looking disheveled, was plastered across the internet. But the real bombshell came the next morning at the competency hearing. The courtroom was packed. Every seat was filled by reporters, curious onlookers, and former employees of Caldwell Tech. Judge Kowalski presided, a stern man who had no patience for theatrics. Arthur Pendergast sat at the plaintiff's table alone. Dawson was currently in a federal holding facility, denied bail due to being a massive flight risk and a danger to witnesses. "Mr. Pendergast," Judge Kowalski said, looking over his spectacles, "we are here to discuss the motion to have Mrs. Caldwell declared mentally incompetent. Do you still wish to proceed?" Pendergast looked tired. He had spent the night trying to shred documents, only to find the FBI raiding his own office at dawn. He stood up slowly. "Your Honor," Pendergast said, his voice defeating, "in light of recent developments and new evidence submitted by the defense, the plaintiff withdraws the motion." "I should think so," Gideon Graves said, standing up. He wore a fresh suit, though a bandage was clearly visible over his left eyebrow. "Your Honor, not only does the defense move for immediate dismissal of all custody claims, but we are also submitting evidence of a criminal conspiracy to frame my client for federal crimes." Gideon placed the black ledger, now tagged as Exhibit A, on the bench, along with a flash drive containing the audio recording from the wine cellar. "This ledger," Gideon announced, turning to the gallery, "proves that Dawson Caldwell is not a businessman. He is a money launderer for organized crime, and this recording proves he intended to murder his wife and unborn child to cover his tracks." The courtroom erupted. The gavel banged repeatedly, but no one listened. The truth was out. The smear campaign Dawson had orchestrated evaporated instantly. The internet, so quick to condemn Sophia the day before, now rallied behind her with ferocious guilt. Justice for Sophia trended worldwide. Pendergast was seen slipping out the side door. He would later be indicted for aiding and abetting, losing his license and his freedom. 2 months later. The hospital room was quiet, filled with the soft morning light of spring. Sophia lay in the bed, exhausted, her hair matted with sweat, but her face glowing with a radiance that no amount of money could buy. In her arms lay a bundle wrapped in a blue blanket. "He's perfect," Evelyn whispered, leaning over the rail. The formidable judge was gone, replaced entirely by a doting grandmother who had already bought half a toy store. "He has your chin, Mum," Sophia smiled, tracing the baby's jawline. "Poor kid," Evelyn laughed, wiping a tear. "He'll be stubborn." "I'm going to name him Leo," Sophia said softly. "Leo?" Evelyn asked. "After the public defender." "After the lion," Sophia said, looking down at her son. "Because he had to be strong to survive all of this, and because his grandmother fights like a lioness." Evelyn choked back a sob and kissed Sophia's forehead. The door opened, and Gideon walked in. He was holding a massive teddy bear and a thick envelope. "Knock, knock," Gideon grinned. "Room for one more?" "Always," Sophia said. "I come bearing gifts," Gideon said. "First, the bear for the little guy. Second," he handed the envelope to Sophia. "The final decree. Dawson's parental rights have been terminated. He pleaded guilty this morning to avoid the death penalty. He got life without parole in a supermax. He will never see the light of day, and he will never, ever come near you or Leo again." Sophia took the envelope. She didn't open it. She didn't need to read the legal jargon. She just felt the weight of it, the weight of her freedom. "Thank you, Gideon," she said, "for everything." "Just doing my job." Gideon shrugged, though his eyes lingered on her with a warmth that suggested he wouldn't mind being more than just her lawyer in the future. Also, Caldwell Tech's board of directors voted. Since Dawson's assets were seized, and the shell companies were technically in your name, they've offered a settlement. A very large settlement. You're not just free, Sophia. You're the majority shareholder. Sophia looked out the window at the New York skyline. It didn't look like a cage anymore. It looked like a playground. She had walked into a courtroom as a victim, a homeless pregnant woman with nothing but the clothes on her back. She was leaving as a mother, a millionaire and a survivor. She looked at Evelyn, then at Gideon, and finally at baby Leo. "We have a lot of work to do," Sophia said, a determined smile playing on her lips. "I'm going to turn that company into something good. Something Dawson would hate." "I'll help you," Evelyn promised. "I'll protect you," Gideon added. Sophia kissed her son's forehead. "And I," she whispered, "will love you." This story reminds us that power isn't about how much money you have in the bank, or how loud you can yell in a courtroom. True power is the bond of family and the courage to stand up against tyranny, no matter the odds. Dawson Caldwell thought he could buy justice, but he learned the hard way that you cannot put a price tag on a mother's love or the truth. Sophia's journey from a victim in a golden cage to a free woman proves that even when you feel powerless, you are never truly alone if you have the courage to fight back. If you enjoyed this dramatic story of justice and redemption, please give this video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. Share this with a friend who needs a reminder that karma always hits back. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.